Hey, you. Put down the Cheetos and the beer and get in your garage and do something. Alright, so this is video 2 of my FiTech EFI Go Street for 600 horsepower. Now, it says 600 horsepower because that's as high as you can go. I'm probably getting like 180 horsepower. That would be incredible if I was getting 600. So what I'm going to talk about today is installing the inline fuel pump, fuel filters, the fuel lines, and AN fittings. Now what I did was, FiTech was actually on back order when I ordered this whole thing. What I ended up doing was piecing the kit together. Tom's Bronco parts had the inline fuel pump, so I got that from them. Steel braided fuel lines from Amazon, the AN fittings, got the fuel filters all from there. So make sure to check the more info link below. I put this whole thing together and it cost way more than had I just waited and bought the kit from FiTech. Moral of the story is, for all you boys and girls, just wait and don't spend more money. And I didn't go with the fuel command center thing because I saw some negative reviews about it. I'm not going to really be taking this thing off-roading, but just in case I happen to drive at this kind of angle, I definitely want it to work. First thing you want to do is figure out where you're going to put your fuel pump. Now this is really important because this will dictate how long you cut the rest of your fuel lines. So what you want to do is you want to put it on the inside of the frame. So this will keep it from getting hit by any rocks or anything kicked up by the tire. The hard part is you have to put it within 3 feet of the fuel tank. And then the other difficult thing is you want to put it on the lowest part of the frame. This is super hard on these Broncos because the frame doesn't go super low within 3 feet of the fuel tank, and the fuel tank actually hangs pretty low. So what you want to do is just make sure that it doesn't go up at any point and get room for air bubbles. Once you have the fuel pump placed, then you want to determine where the fuel filter will go. There's a 100 micron fuel filter, and I put it 6 inches from my fuel pump, and I wish I would have put it closer because basically now it's really hard to make that bend out of the fuel tank to the fuel filter and then to the fuel pump. So if I would have done it again, I would have put this about 4 or 3 inches away from the fuel filter. Once you get all the placement, then you can start putting together your fuel lines. This is actually pretty intimidating. I don't know if you've ever put together AN fittings. I hadn't, and I don't have the proper AN fitting tools, but once you do one, then it gets pretty easy. So the first thing you want to do is you want to cut your lines. If you're using steel braided lines, you want to actually wrap this in duct tape so that when you cut through the line, it doesn't fray the edges. Now I just used my 4-inch angle grinder to cut the fuel lines, and it was actually pretty easy and worked really well. But if you're doing this, make sure to clean out the lines really well. Spray it out with some brake cleaner and use an air compressor to blow it all out. Then you got to put on the first part of the AN fitting. Believe me, it actually does go on, but it just takes a ton of force. Then what you want to do is put the second part of the fitting on. Now I put this in my vise, I put a little oil in there, and then I got the fitting on there. Then you screw it tight. Now this seals the fitting. So there's no taking this off, there's no replacing it, there's no trying to reuse this. Like, you've basically sealed the whole fitting together and it's not coming back apart. Okay, so here are all the lines on the ground so you can get an idea of the length. These 2 hoses plug directly into the tank. This one goes to an 8 AN fitting, then to the 100 micron fuel filter, then to another 8 AN fitting. And this piece is the one that I cut too long. I wish it was about 2 inches shorter. And then this goes to a 6 AN fitting, then to the fuel pump. Then this goes to a 30 micron fuel filter with 6 AN fittings all the way to the throttle body. Then hook everything up and tighten it all down. Then the last thing to do is hook up the wire to your fuel pump. Now with the FiTech, it comes with a wire that goes directly to the positive side of the fuel pump. But what I did was I ran a dedicated wire from the negative side of the fuel pump all the way back up to the negative side of my battery. The reason I did this was because the number one thing that causes a fuel pump to fail is a bad ground. And especially on these classic cars, you've got a ton of rust on the frame, you've got a ton of rust on the body, so grounding issues can become a problem the further back you go. So I ran a dedicated line all the way back up to my battery so that hopefully the grounding issues would be resolved there. Not something that you have to do, but it's just something that I decided to do to make sure that things were good. So at this point, what you want to do is you just want to check the system. You want to prime the pump a couple times. Don't crank it, but just turn it on. Make sure the pump is priming. And sure enough, when I was doing this, I had a couple leaks that I had to deal with.
If we get power, watch for leaks.
There's a leak.
It's just at a fitting. Prime it and see if it'll leak again.
All right, that is it. Man, a special thanks goes out to Patrick for helping me. Morris came out and helped me, and his son Caleb made some of my fuel lines for me. Super helpful, appreciate all the help. Click the more info button below to make sure to see all the things that I bought. And next week, I'll be posting starting it up. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the beautiful Bronco videos. Thanks, guys.